Chapter 16. After this solemn ordinance was completed, together with the blessings, charges, and instructions connected therewith, I was instructed to prepare for a mission in the coming spring in connection with my brethren of the quorum. I now returned home to New Portage and began to make preparations for my mission. But the state of my affairs was such that it seemed almost impossible for me to leave home. My wife was sick. My aged mother had come to live with me and looked to me for support, age and infirmity having rendered my father unable to do for himself or family. I was also engaged in building a house and in other business, while at the same time I was somewhat in debt and in want of most of the necessities of life. Under these embarrassed circumstances, I hesitated for a while whether to attempt to perform the mission assigned me or stay at home and finish my building and mechanical work. While I pondered these things with my mind unsettled and continued my work with a feeling of hesitation whether it was a duty to sacrifice all the labor and expense to which I had been in my preparations and unfinished work, or whether it was a duty to stay and complete it. I was called very suddenly to administer to a brother by the name of Matthews, who was taken suddenly and dangerously ill. I found him writhing and groaning in the utmost agony, being cramped and convulsed in a horrible manner. While the family was in great consternation and weeping round him, I kneeled down to pray, but in the midst of my prayer, we were interrupted by the cry of fire! 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 We sprang from our knees and ran toward my house, which was all in a blaze, being an unfinished 2-story frame building, open to the fresh breeze, full of shavings, lumber, shingles, etiquette, while a family occupied a small apartment of the same, and no water near. Our utmost exertions barely accomplished the removal of the family and their goods. The building, tools, boards, shingles, building materials, all were consumed in a few moments. Thus closed all my hesitation. My works of that nature were now all completed, and I was ready to fill my mission. One gave me a coat, another a hat, a third house room, a fourth provisions, while a fifth forgave me the debts due to them, and a sixth bade me Godspeed to hasten on my mission. Taking an affectionate leave of my family and friends in New Portage, I repaired to Kirtland, ready to accompany my brethren. While they made ready, I paid a visit to an adjoining township and called Mentor. And visiting from house to house, I attempted an adjoining township called Mentor. And visiting from house to house, I attempted to preach to them, but they were full of lying and prejudice and would not hear the word. I then appointed a meeting in the open air on the steps of a meeting house owned by a people called Campbellites, one Mr. Alexander Campbell being their leader, they having refused to open the house to me. Some came to hear, and some to disturb the meeting, and one Mr. Newell soon appeared at the head of a mob of 50 men and a band of music. These formed in order of battle and marched round several times near where I stood, drowning my voice with the noise of their drums and other instruments. I suspended my discourse several times as they passed, and then resumed. At length, finding that no disturbance of any kind would prevent the attempt to discharge my duty, they rushed upon me with one accord at a given signal, every man throwing an egg at my person. My forehead, bosom, and most of my body was completely covered with broken eggs. At this, I departed and walked slowly away, being insulted and followed by this rabble for some distance. I soon arrived at Kirtland and was assisted by my kind friends in cleansing myself and clothes from the effects of this Christian benevolence. All things being in readiness, and the spring fairly opened, the 12 took their journey down Lake Erie and landed at Dunkirk, in the neighborhood of which we had appointed to hold a conference. The members of the church assembled from the region round, and the people turned out in great numbers. We addressed them in several interesting discourses, and had a good time. Many seemed to receive the word with joy, and some were baptized and added to the church. From thence we continued our journey through the eastern states, holding conferences in every place where branches of the church had been organized, ordaining and instructing elders and other officers, exhorting the members to continue in prayer and in well-doing, ministering to the sick, instructing the ignorant. We also preached the word and baptized such as desired to be obedient to the faith, confirming them by the laying on of hands and praying in the name of Jesus Christ. Thus the Holy Ghost and the gifts thereof were shed forth among the people, and they had great joy. The month of August 1835 found us in the state of Maine, and the mission completed. We now returned to Boston, and from thence home to Kirtland, where we arrived sometime in October. After spending a few days in the Society of the Saints in Kirtland, I repaired to New Portage, where I found my wife and mother in usual health, and was received with joy by them and the saints. I now made preparation and removed to Kirtland in order to be with the body of the church at the headquarters, and to improve every opportunity of obtaining instruction. A portion of the temple at Kirtland was now finished, and schools were opened in several apartments. The presidency of the church, the 12, and many others were organized in a school for the purpose of studying the Hebrew language. This study and the meetings of the several quorums for instruction and endowment occupied most of the winter. The ordinances of the priesthood were revealed to a greater extent than had been known among men since the prophets and apostles of old fell asleep. And many were appointed to their holy calling, and were instructed in principles which were great and glorious in themselves, and calculated to enlarge the mind and prepare the chosen servants of God for the great work before them. Many great and marvelous things were prophesied, which I am not at liberty to record, and many of which have since been fulfilled to the very letter. Many persons were carried away in visions of the Spirit, and saw and heard unspeakable things, and many enjoyed the ministering of angels and the gift of healing and of speaking in tongues. Spring at length returned, and the elders prepared to take leave of each other and to go on their several missions. As to myself, I was deeply in debt for the expenses of life during the winter, and on account of purchasing a lot and building thereon. I therefore knew not what to do, whether to go on a mission or to stay at home and endeavor by industries to sustain my family and pay my debts. It was now April. I had retired to rest one evening at an early hour, and was pondering my future course, when there came a knock at the door. I arose and opened it, when Elder Heber C. Kimball and others entered my house, and being filled with the spirit of prophecy, they blessed me and my wife, and prophesied as follows. Brother Parley, thy wife shall be healed from this hour, and shall bear a son, and his name shall be Parley, and he shall be a chosen instrument in the hands of the Lord to inherit the priesthood and to walk in the steps of his father. He shall do a great work in the earth, in ministering the word and teaching the children of men. Arise therefore, and go forth in the ministry, nothing doubting. Take no thought for your debts, nor the necessities of life, for the Lord will supply you with abundant means for all things. Thou shalt go to Upper Canada, even to the city of Toronto, the capital, and there thou shalt find a people prepared for the fullness of the gospel, and they shall receive thee, and thou shalt organize the church among them, and it shall spread thence into the regions round about, and many shall be brought to the knowledge of the truth, and shall be filled with joy, and from the things growing out, And from the things growing out of this mission shall the fullness of the gospel spread into England and cause a great work to be done in that land. You shall not only have means to deliver you from your present embarrassments, but you shall yet have riches, silver, and gold, till you will loathe the counting thereof. This prophecy was the more marvelous, because being married nearly 10 years, we had never had any children, and for nearly 6 years my wife had been consumptive and had been considered incurable. However, we called to mind the faith of Abraham of old, and judged him faithful who had promised. Judging him faithful who had promised, we took courage. I now began in earnest to prepare for the mission, and in a few days all was ready. I took an affectionate leave of my wife, mother, and friends, and started for Canada in company with Brother Nickerson, who kindly offered to bear my expenses. After a long and tedious passage in a public coach, the roads being very bad and the lake not open, we arrived at the Falls of Niagara some time in the month of April 1836. As this was my first visit to this place, it made a deep and awful impression on my mind. We halted a short time to view this wonder of nature, and to adore that God who had formed a world so sublimely grand. The leaping of a mighty river of water over a perpendicular fall of 160 feet, the foaming and dashing of its white spray upon the rocks beneath, the rising cloud of mist with its glittering rainbow, the yawning gulf with its 1,000 whirlpools, all conspired to fill the contemplative mind with wonder and admiration, and with reverence to the great author of all the wonders of creation, while its everlasting roar, which may be heard for many miles distant, seemed a lively emblem of eternity. While musing on this spot, I fell into the following train of reflection. O Niagara, generations may pass in long succession, ages may roll away and others still succeed, empires may rise and flourish and pass away and be forgotten, but still thy solemn and awful voice is heard in one eternal roar. The temples of marble may molder to rust, the mountains of the great may crumble to decay, the palaces of kings fall to ruins, and their very place become unknown, their history forgotten in the almost countless ages of antiquity. And still thy sound is heard in everlasting moan, as if mourning over the ruins of bygone years. With deep eloquence thou seemest to speak in awful pride, saying, Before Abraham was I, and with mingled feelings of pity and contempt thou seemest to inquire, Where now is Nimrod's mighty tower? Where is the majestic walls, the warlike battlements, the splendid palaces, the hanging gardens of Babylon? Where the proud Nebuchadnezzar, who with golden scepter swayed the world and made the nations tremble? Where the proud Nineveh, the strong Thebes with its 100 gates, the golden Tyre, the splendid Athens, the majestic Rome, with all their works of art, their monuments of fame, once the pride and the glory of the world? Where the mighty Pharaohs, the terrible Alexanders, the invincible Caesars, the warlike Hannibal, tyrants in turn? Where now the gifted poets, the splendid orators, the profound philosophers of Greece and Rome, whose mighty genius hurled royal tyrants headlong from their thrones, made senates weep or laugh at will, and ruled the nations? They are swept away by time, their beauty like the morning flower is withered, their pride and glory gone like leaves of autumn. Their grandest works are fast decayed, moldering in ruin, soon to be forgotten. But still my storehouse is inexhausted, my fountain full and overflowing, my solid munitions of rocks stand secure, my voice as mighty as when the beauteous colors of the rainbow first sported in the sunbeams. And when the intelligence of gold worlds first gazed with admiration upon my expanded waters, or animated at the music of my voice, joined in the courts, and all the sons of God shouted for joy. But boast not, O proud Niagara, though thou mayest withstand the ravages of time, while countless millions, swept away with all their mighty works, are lost in following years. Yet there is a voice to speak, loud and loud. 'Tis Michael's trump, whose mighty blast shall rend thy rocks, and bow thy lofty mountains in the dust, before whose awful presence thy waters blush in retiring modesty, and in respectful silence thou shalt stand in listening wonder, and admire while thunders roll majestic around the sky, the lightnings play, the mountains sink, the valleys rise, till earth, restored to its original, receives its finest rest, and groans and sighs no more. Till then, weep on, and let thy voice ascend in solemn music to the skies. 'Tis like a funeral dirge. 'Tis fit to weep o'er the miseries of a fallen world in anguish deep.